Hello. This is the beginning of a series of small video lectures where we'll be committed to do some Python programming basic skills, and then we're going to be learning how to make decisions, declare variables, play with some data types and data structures, and then perhaps also go over some advanced programming such as object-oriented and functional programming. And in between, perhaps we'll also have some really interesting and fun projects to work with. So let's get started. So the number one thing where people start learning a language, they basically have to think about a platform. Luckily for Python, if you actually go to the website here, that says https ripple.it/languages and then IP3 Python 3 is going to give you an online resource that you can actually use, which is essentially you can type in your programs and then you'll be able to run them after you type it here, and then you'll see the result right here. So the number one thing that when again after we know what kind of development environment that we work with, this is not going to require you doing anything. You don't have to download anything, you don't have to install anything for the time being, and perhaps in advanced lectures we'll be able to show you some other advanced tools that you can work with, and some of them are really easy to, similar to this one on a web browser. However, you have to download it. So the number one thing where people start learning a programming language, they usually want to say hello world. So they print a message on the screen that says hello world, like that. Hello world here, even though it's really very simple, and if we actually run this, if we run this over here like that, we will see that the hello world has been printed here on the right hand side. So let's take a look at these components. So there is a function here, a little device. This is a built-in device for printing things on the screen. And these things, we'll talk about them. What are these things are? So this is this is basically the print function here. This is called a function. So it's a built-in function, and then it takes a small string. When I mean a small, I really don't mean a small. I mean just takes a little text here that will basically print on the screen. So we can actually try a different flavor of this. Instead of these single quotes here, we can have double quotes, and that would be also hello world, like that. And this can also be run, and you will see two of them. So we can say hello world from single quote string, and we can also say hello world from double quote string. Both of these guys are going to be printing, and then we'll be able to distinguish between the one printed from here versus the one printed from there. Okay, now we can do something else. Suppose that I want to greet a person. So now I want to do greeting for an individual. And what I'm writing here after this hash sign is essentially a comment. So the compiler, or not the compiler, the interpreter, the Python interpreter, is going to ignore it. It's something for your eyes to see, and you can make sense of the code, but it does not really have any bearing on the actual structure of the program. Suppose you want to do greeting for your name. Print greeting, like that. And then you want to have a name. Shannon, I don't know. It's the name that came to mind, Shannon, like this. So we say, hello, greeting Shannon. This is going to print Shannon here. But suppose now I want to have this greeting based on something that the person enters. Instead of having it written down here, now I have to write down every other name that I want. Is there a way that I can accept the name from the person, and then this name can be printed? So there is actually a little device here called the input device that takes a message that says enter, and this is kind of an arbitrary and optional message. You can enter anything you want. You can list anything you want in any language you prefer. Enter your name like that, and if I do this, then I'm just and then I run it. It's going to ask me to enter the name here, and if I want to enter the name Shannon like that, nothing's gonna happen because it basically accepted it. But what we did not do, we did not save it. So let's make sure that we save this name here into a placeholder. Is called a variable. So now we have this name here. If I just print the name like that after after I accept it from the user, and then I store it in this placeholder, and then I print it. Let's see what's going to happen here. So now I have the same message that says enter your name, Sean, like that. So now here, as you can see, we entered the name Sean, and then the name Sean was printed. Now let's modify this thing, and then let's make it about the greeting that we wanted to do here. So I'm going to list a greeting message here, greeting like that, and whatever name that I'm going to be entering here. So here, accept and input name from the keyboard like that. I don't know if I can just run this by its own. I can try. Apparently it has to run everything here. Okay, doesn't matter. So enter your name. So let's enter Sean's name, and then it says greeting Sean. This is now, as you can see, this function here, or this little device here, was able to accommodate for the greeting message and also whatever name. So if I run this one more time, and now I actually don't need these guys anymore. So what I can do, I can basically comment them out. They were a basic demonstration here. So instead of running them, let me see why this is not working. Like that. Okay. So now I commented all the code that I've written here. So the only thing that will be printed on the screen will be enter your name. So we're gonna enter Sean, and then it says greeting Sean. If I run it one more time, like that, and say the name is Dale, then it says greeting Dale. If I run it one more time, and then I enter the name Sandra, for instance, like that, that would be greeting Sandra. So that is how we can utilize placeholders, and how we can also accept input from the keyboard, and then we can do some really interesting things. Okay, so is there a way that I can maybe instead of just entering the name by itself like that, is there a way that I can enter the first name and then last name, and then format it in a way that first name or last name can be printed first? So let's try to write this down. So what we're trying to do here is to accept an input first name from the keyboard like that. That is not the keyboard interrupt. It does autocomplete here for some reason. So now I'm going to use my input device here, and I'm going to give a very nice message to the user to understand what the user, to give the user an indication of what he or she needs to do. So here we're going to say enter first name, like that. And now I'm going to store that first name that the user are going to be entering from the keyboard using the input device into a placeholder called first name. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the last name. So I'm going to get the input device here, and then the message that I'm going to be using, that it should say enter last name, like that. Remember, we want to see something. We want to see something like greeting Shannon Davidson, for instance. Or we want to have Davidson Shannon, like that. And then it says the greeting. So greeting. So we want to have our code printing something on a screen and make it look really nice like this. So now I'm going to have the user enter the last name, and I'm going to store it into a small device called lname, which stands for the last name. Now if I have a print statement here, then I'm going to use this guy here that says greeting, like that. And now I want to print the last name, and then comma, and then the first name, and then exclamation. So now I want to separate these guys by comma. So here's going to be my last name, like that. And then here is going to be my first name, like that. If I do this, I can expect some problems, even though it's not exactly serious problems, but it still become a problem. You will see it in a second. Before we move forward, I just have to comment out these guys. Now I'm going to run the code. Here it says enter the first name, and the first name here is Shannon, like that. And enter the last name. And as you can see, we are immediately seeing some of the issues. Davidson, like that. So it seems like we really have to leave some spaces like that, so it can come across really nicely. And we also did not have an exclamation here, so perhaps we need to have another comma, and then we add the exclamation, and this is going to give me the exclamation. And I don't need to leave space here like that. I just need to leave a space for the last name. So now the problems that I was referring to earlier will likely disappear, for sure will disappear. So now, as you can see, we made some space here. That's really good. So the first name would be Shannon, and the last name would be Davidson, like that. And now we can see greeting Davidson Shannon. However, we're still missing this comma here. So what we need to do is to there are multiple commas here, and I can see how confusing that would be. These commas are part of the print statement for the components. It's separator, but the comma that we need here is part of the text. So this one here, as part of the text, has to be put in single quote, and these guys are to separate the components inside the print statement. So how many components that we have in the print statement? We have 1, 2, the comma, that's 3, and then the first name is 4, and then exclamation. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components. That's exactly the kind of the number of components that we have. I believe this will look really nice if we run it one more time. So the first name is Shannon, again, Shannon, like that, and the last name is Davidson. And now we have a really nice message here that looks really nice. And as you can see, it didn't really matter which name you entered first. Here's also what we can do. We can print the greeting the same way that we printed up here. And now we want to print the first name and then last name and then exclamation. So I want to print it that way. Here's how I want to print it. Greeting. Let me put it underneath here, like that. Greeting. That would be Shannon Davidson, like that, and then an exclamation. So that would have how many components? 1, 2, 3, 4 components. We already have the greeting message here, so now we need to do the first name, like that, and then we also need to put the last name, L name, like that, and then we also want to add an exclamation at the end, like that. All right. So now I should be able to see a message is going to be printed like this, and a message is going to be printed like that one. Two of them. After I'm being prompted to enter, so this is gonna be printing. We can structure this nicely, like that. So after we enter the first name and last name, we should be able to see two different messages that will look exactly like that. So now the first name is Shannon, last name is Davidson, like that. And now, as you can see, there are two different ways. Clearly here I have a small typo. We can run it one more time. And that would be Shannon, like that. And that would also be Davidson, like this. And one of them will be first and then last, and the other one would be last, comma, first, and then exclamation. This is just a small tutorial, and then we in the next one we should be able to accept other other types of data, not just names. This could be like a number in the form of a digit, or could be a number in the form of a fraction. We understand what a fraction is, like 25, 0.25 or 125, like that. These are fractions. 49, 0.49, like that. And a digit could be 13, 17, 19, 12, 0, and so on. So this is what we're gonna see how we can do, and perhaps being able to be able to work with these different kinds of data types.